Hello, everyone. Chintan and I, you would have been seeing, we've been talking about some tools, some solutions for incubator managers that are unleashing change in the country's innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystem all across uh, the spread, the breadth and the length and breadth of the country. Over the last couple of episodes, we've spoken about pressing aspects that are relevant to particularly to growing incubators. Today, we delve into something that is relevant not just to younger incubators, but those that may have stabilized, that may have expanded operations significantly as well. We're talking about performance measurement of incubators. I, of course, have my colleague Chintan Bakshi here. Chintan leads our incubation piece at CICO. Chintan, welcome.
Thanks, Supriya. Very happy to be here again. Looking forward to the conversation.
Great. So, Chintan, and you and I have spoken about this. Maybe a couple of others also. We've debated on this that um, incubation, significant drive for incubation in the country is driven by is sort of filled by policies, incubation policies that are housed under various government departments, both at the central as well as the state levels. Um, Most, if not all, of these policies have clearly defined impact metrics that they require the incubators to track during the program. Um, we've also learned that most incubators spend considerable time tracking these numbers, tracking these metrics, and reporting back to the donors. The question that I want to start with is that all when it comes to performance measurement or impact measurement for incubators?
No, I think a very relevant question because, in a way, I think we have also been uh, kind of being limited initially when we were tracking our performance, etc. Largely by what our donors or partners would ask for, because each donor would have their own impact measurement metrics depending on what they want to achieve through an incubation program. It could be intellectual property for someone which is tech oriented, or other social impact measures and all that. And typically the incubator tends to follow those as their kind of metrics or success metrics, because they're looking at the success of the program as one of the key indicators. But I think what it does is that it, in a way, defocuses or doesn't allow the incubator to focus on their core operations and operational excellence, and what an incubator should be achieving independent of the impact measurement needs of the donor. So, for example, one of the key things that an incubator does is help the startup reduce risk of failure, and sort of help them move to from a certain stage to the next stage, so that the risk is reduced and the startup becomes more sustainable, fundable, scalable, unit economics, profitable, etc. Now, lot of these are intermediate in that sense. I mean, once this happens, they may lead to startup success, which may lead to impact creation for the donor. But if you don't track these, what I would say are intermediate kind of metrics, but these are really the core of the operations of an incubator, then it's too late by the time you realize that things are not on track. And these are really the core operations, business operations of an incubator. So yeah, I think there are a certain set of metrics that an incubator needs to track on a regular basis, just like any other professional business organization, which are independent of what the client or the donor would want.
Yeah. Um, I think you're making a very powerful point. The fact that, and I also feel that if you were to only track the impact, then it has the potential to become haphazard, as against a more deliberate effort and you tracking outcome at various stages, or tracking, what gets done at various stages of reaching that impact. Is there a framework, is there a model that is readily available that incubators could quickly adopt to their own operations instead of thinking and coming up with something afresh?
Right. No, I think talking from the CICO experience, and I mean, I would say there are two frameworks that an incubator can use, and the first framework is fairly well accepted, and all incubators who have worked with donors would be familiar with this. That's more like the theory of change, input, output, outcome, impact, kind of a framework that they can use. And impact is of course the what the donor is probably interested in, or maybe the outcomes, and the input and output then become like the boxes which the incubator sort of populates to make sure that they are able to achieve the outcomes and the impact. So this could be one framework that can generate a set of metrics. But I would suggest, and that's again coming from our experience, we have started using the OKR
Mm.
framework, which is objectives and key result frameworks. It has two advantages. One is that it can be set for the entire organization, and then it percolates down to, let's say, various functions, and from the functions it then goes to the team members, and kind of leads to the creation of the OKRs, or the targets,
Yeah,
key performance indicators for the individual team members. So there's that alignment between across the levels, at the organization level, at the functional level, departmental level, and the individual level. So I think a combination, using these two frameworks to make sure that the what we just discussed earlier, that while the client or the donor requirements are also being met, but the larger organizational objective of becoming an excellent incubator, where you are essentially helping startups
mm.
achieve growth, de-risk, those are also aligned. And it's not aligned just at an organization level, but it percolates down to the teams, and then to the individuals.
Yeah.
So using a combination of these, I think we can arrive at these metrics, and these will be helpful at an operating level, and also at a long term client reporting level.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree. I completely agree, Chintan. And I think on some forum, I'd also heard you talk about um, applying some form of a cadence to doing this measurement and this tracking, which is not just driven by an external need. Like the OKR example that you're giving us. I mean, I also know that here back at CICO, we do the OKR conversation at least twice a year. That sometime between May and June, the entire team is looking at their own key results, linking it back to the objectives. How did we do? The input output, the theory of change, that sort of tracking happens almost, I think, what, every 3 months.
Right.
And that, at least you and I have seen that over the last couple of years, that has taken away that stress of tracking just the impact numbers at the end of a program period. So that one, of course, adds more uh, stability in tracking performance at various stages, and the impact subsequently. Great. This is very, very helpful, Chintan. Any other last thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, on the same point, maybe what I'll just to illustrate the point, maybe I'll quickly take an example of an OKR that we use to not only track our performance, but it also leads to impact mapping. So for example, we have one of the objectives at CIE to be a highly customer centric organization,
Yeah.
and our customers are really startups. So how do we make sure that the startups who are engaged with us through our programs or through our centers, etc., I mean, they get that feeling of wow, that they've really gained something. Now there could be various, so that's the larger objective across the organization. But let's say for Nest, for the incubation activities, we could have metrics, or KRs, or key results, which could be things like number of startups that we are expecting in an year to experience something known as an orbit change, which essentially means that
Mm.
they are able to move from the current stage of risks to a higher level, where, I mean, the risks are significantly lower. So let's say a
Mm.
startup is at a prototype stage, a certain number of them are able to move to an MVP stage. Now,
Yeah.
this is something again that typically a donor may or may not want to report, but this is an important metric in terms of operational excellence. And if we have to create impact, let's say in terms of number of jobs created or value created, etc., this is an important metric, because only if a startup moves from one level to the other, de-risks, gets ready for growth, will the larger objective be met. Within this, there could be another element that the number of startups who have gone through our program but are now ready for seed investments, or they are ready to, or they have, or they are ready for follow-on, or they've been able to raise follow-on funding. Now
Right.
that's again a metric of our, uh, I mean, startups being able to achieve an objective and therefore getting benefited. And now that could be something which is also directly aligned to a lot of the donor objectives. A lot of donors may look at follow-on funding as one of the indicators, so
Hmm.
on and so forth. Last point, one of the things that we track at CI is that for every program, every structured interaction that we have with startups, we do a feedback, a startup support rating. That's again something which is not relevant from a donor perspective in most cases, but again it tells us something about the quality of our
Yeah.
program, how meaningful they were. A program could be a mentoring session, it could be a boot camp or a learning session. So these are some of the key results areas, all tying in with the larger objective of customer centricity. I mean, just to
Yeah.
give an example, and an organization can create 5, 6, 7 objectives and then have these key results areas. Some of them would be just tracking the internal operations, operational excellence. Some of them could even lead to impact measurement, which would be useful for client reporting. Yeah.
Right. So, so the example actually made it clearer for me as well. While I have seen these, this entire table in the past. So then, and at least the thought that's getting lit up in my head is, while impact is important and donor organizations, including the government, for them it also makes sense to track impact because that's their end goal. And then it also helps consolidate the impact from, or at least being impact being made by various organizations. So that's it's the same number that they can consolidate. But incubators are also organizations in their own right. While impact, if you were to just track the impact number, it would subsume things like the orbit change. So impact like number of jobs created would assume that the startup would have grown for it to create more jobs. But for an incubator, it makes sense to track this process element because, I mean, otherwise, how do you reach there? You would be doing these things, but perhaps with a little, I mean, if you were to apply a framework like this, then with some more deliberation, with some more clarity, with better processes. Great. Thank you so much, Chintan. This was very helpful. I'm hoping that this also reaches incubator managers who may be struggling. It's almost the end of the year. I'm sure many incubator managers are getting in that reporting mode, especially those working with international donors. I hope this is helpful to them. For the folks who are watching, who joined us today, you should know that we've recently published a playbook for incubators, particularly those that are located in lesser known geographies in India. I suppose we will leave a link to the playbook somewhere here. If you have any questions, please do reach out to us. Most of us are fairly active on LinkedIn, but our emails will also be available somewhere here. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.